Leorah picked up her knitting, but she was so angry she hardly knew what she was doing, and had soon got her blanket into a snarl, making her growl under her breath.
Edward, the Viscount Withinghall, and I were in school together as boys. He is 2 years older than I, and once saved me from a thrashing by some older boys. He is a good sort of fellow, and he's also from Lincolnshire. Our fathers were on friendly terms, and now he is one of John Wilson's greatest supporters in his Children's Aid mission.
I am certainly grateful he did that service when you were boys, Julia said, sending an affectionate look toward her husband. He seemed very courteous when I met him, though a little stiff and formal. But what was it you saw in the newspaper? Julia asked. You said there was something in the paper about him. Leorah went on, trying to undo the tangled knot she'd made in her knitting, determined to be silent and say not another word about the odious Lord Withinghall. The sooner the subject of that Undertaker Viscount was dropped, the better.
It seems a young woman of dubious character is trying to say that Lord Withinghall had promised to give her exclusive rights, as it were, of—
Here he trailed off, looking up at Leorah. His gaze flitted to Julia, and he cleared his throat.
That is to say, she claims she was his kept mistress, but the Viscount refused to pay her the agreed-upon terms, including the stipend he receives as a cabinet minister. Apparently, this was the story that came out a few days ago in the Morning Herald. But now the Courier is refuting her story, or at least casting doubt upon it, by saying that the woman in question has never been seen going in or coming out of Lord Withinghall's house in Grosvenor Square, and he has never been seen anywhere near the woman's lodgings on St. James Street. They also state that she is actually known to be the courtesan of someone else. And Lord Withinghall's salary as a cabinet minister, as I know personally, is donated to the Children's Aid mission.
Leorah raised her eyebrows at Julia. Oh yes, that is true, Julia confirmed. Lord Withinghall is the Children's Aid mission's largest single supporter. Besides Nicholas and Julia Langdon, of course. They worked closely with the clergyman John Wilson, who had created the charity to help the poor children and their families. How curious that a stuffy bachelor such as Lord Withinghall should give money to a children's charity. He certainly wasn't spending his money on the latest fashions, for he dressed all in black and wore the stiffest cravat and the stingiest cut of coat. Poor Lord Withinghall. Julia clucked her tongue against her teeth and shook her head as she looked over at her husband. I can't imagine that the accusations are true, but he would be mortified, no doubt.
No doubt,
Nicholas agreed grimly.
He has such a horror of scandal.
Why? Julia asked. Because he is a statesman and a public figure? He probably doesn't want to jeopardize his political career.
Partially, though it stems mostly from what happened with his father when he was only a boy.
Nicholas didn't continue. Leorah and Julia both looked up from their knitting and stared at him until he lowered his newspaper. What happened to him when he was a boy? Julia asked.
I don't remember all the particulars. I'm sure he wouldn't want anyone to remember.
Nicholas Langdon, tell us what you know, Julia demanded in her soft voice, while Leorah kept her scowl of annoyance directed down at her lap where Nicholas couldn't see and be encouraged to tease her further. You've piqued our interest, and it's unfair not to satisfy our curiosity.
His father was embroiled in more than one scandal, one of them involving a young married woman. Withinghall's father was a cabinet minister, and he was poised to rise to the position of Prime Minister and First Lord of the Treasury, but he had a mistress who was a notorious courtesan, and she testified against him in Parliament. I don't remember exactly what it was about. Something about bribes in exchange for votes on a bill, I think. And then, a year or two later, he had a dalliance with a married woman, which resulted in that woman throwing herself into the Thames and drowning. Her husband challenged Withinghall's father to a duel, and he shot and killed the Viscount.
Oh my, how terrible for his wife and son. Julia's brows were drawn together in a look of sorrow.
Yes, Withinghall's mother died soon after, and poor